Hello, and welcome to The Gathering, a Magic podcast. My name's Stanley, and I'm here with some of my best friends to talk to you about our favorite game, Magic the Gathering. And today, we have recorded again. It was 2 months before our prior episode, and now our last episode was a week ago. And this is a special treat because Worlds just happened. And that's an exciting, important tournament. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know what Worlds is. In case you don't, it's the biggest tournament of the year. It's invitation only to the highest standards. Only 126 players played in the tournament. I think there's like $1 million in prizes. It's the biggest of the big deals. And in the tournament, I'm just going to go first and say my thing before I hand it off to Nick to talk about the best deck. But I just want to take a minute to complain. Izzet Prowess was at Worlds. I don't know if you guys know this. 9 people played Izzet Prowess. It had a 57% win rate. And according to this beautiful graphic from Wizards, the key cards in Prowess are Thunder Trap Trainer and Splash Portal. And if that's not the sign of a great Prowess deck, I don't know what is. It just tilts me to no end every time they're like, Izzet Prowess is back in the meta? And I'm like, oh, we're playing Prowess. No, we're not. Every Izzet deck is playing 4 Storm Chasers Talon. So they just ran out of Izzet sub-archetypes. We have Izzet Lessons, we have Izzet Looting, and they're like, this one's scamming Riddlers in, and we don't like to use the word scam in our deck archetypes, so we're going to call it Izzet Checks Notes. I don't know, there's 5 cards that make Prowess creatures, so let's call it Prowess. Ignore the fact that every Izzet deck is playing 4 out of those 5. There's no Prowess deck in Standard, guys. Don't get gaslit by the standings or the archetypes or MTG Goldfish. It's not great like Modern, where you can play a Prowess deck. You get to be aggressive, play tempo, cast cool. No, there's no Prowess deck in Standard. So don't get tricked. It's just a Riddler scam deck. All right.
I wasn't sure where you were going with I want to spend 5 minutes to complain. But I thought it was going to be something about Screaming Nemesis getting banned or Mono Red doing horrible or something. But you actually picked a good thing to complain about. So I'm proud of you.
I'm a big fan of not beating dead horses. So I don't want to talk about Nemesis at all. But Jacob, go ahead.
I do like that you brought up that point because I did have a griping complaint about the weekend. I don't know where we're coming up with these graphics to describe, or these naming conventions is what I should say for decks, because this Jeskai control deck that they were yeah, this is Jeskai control, but they're just playing a Shiko and then putting a 4/4 Flying Haste and Vigilance into play, and just attacking your opponent for 4. I'm that's not a control deck. That's a mid-range, more. It played a lot like a tempo deck, to be completely real with you. Deck was very, very cool, but when people are the main goal of the deck was cast Lightning Helix as many times, targeting your opponent as possible, and just get them dead by turn 6. Not a control deck. I don't even think the 2014 Kiki Jiki Restoration Angel modern control deck was killing people on turn 6 consistently, unless they exclusively went Restoration Angel on turn 4, Kiki Jiki on turn 5, and your opponent had 0 interaction, and that was a control deck. So I don't know. We really gotta Wizards really needs to step up their game with these naming conventions. We gotta work on diversifying. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that at Worlds, it's such an exclusive tournament. You can afford to be picky and precise. I get that you have to have archetypes, you have to have data, we have to make some sacrifices, otherwise there's 10,000 archetypes and there's no point. But at Worlds of all tournaments, come on, there's no Prowess deck in Standard.
I would like to say this is not Stanley or I coming at any of the people who actually go through all the deck lists and have to categorize them into archetypes, right? I do really appreciate when you like look at the breakdown and you have like the major decks that people are expecting percentage wise, and then you have everything that falls into other. But especially when you're like in a tournament of that size where you are specifically wanting to put decks that people who are doing well with decks that you aren't expecting over the course of the weekend to do well, I think like a little thought could go into like how you want to name them, especially with because they do it for the bigger tournaments, so I don't know why we would not apply the same standard for the smaller tournaments. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you actually have to put more in to actually figure out what this person that's like 5-0 at a spotlight with some deck that wasn't on the radar wants it to be called than you do at Worlds, because there's less people.
Yeah. This Izzet Prowess thing has been bothering me for ages. Like, Izzet Prowess has been part of the meta since they banned Steel Cutter, but there has been no Prowess deck in Standard since they banned Steel Cutter. They're just like, oh, there's 4 Storm Chasers talents and 2 Planispheres. It's Izzet Prowess. No, it's not. It's Riddler's Game. Or, like, just a generic Izzet Tempo deck. Anyway, that is not the main storyline of Worlds. It's just a thing that's been annoying me, and I wanted to complain about something interesting. Nick, thank you for agreeing that it was interesting, but we've gone on long enough. The most important thing, of course, is that Izzet Lessons completely just took Worlds by storm, and the deck was epic. The version with Monument and Artist Talent came out the champion. It's a version that Nick has been playing for a long time. Comrade Op over in my Discord long ago, November 19th or something, I don't know. Everybody likes to take screenshots and pull out dates. There's some like weird stuff going on with credit, but like, Comrade is the first person that we heard from, like, put these cards in the Lessons shell and it cooks, and Nick started playing it and was like, yo, low key, like, your Discord cooked, like, this is really good, and he's been playing it and killing it ever since. And I'll let Nick talk about how the deck works and why it won, and give us some like nerdy talk about the best deck at Worlds, and I'm sure he'll sprinkle in some advice on how you can be the best player you can be with the best deck in Standard.
I do think it's funny you brought up that how I like said, oh, your Discord kind of cooks. I remember when I first saw the deck list, I was like, what are we really doing here? Like, we're just throwing Monument in our deck? Like, what are we really doing? And then I, like, finally decided I was going to actually play. So, like, Monument, Artist Talent, like, okay, you can dodge Graveyard Hate in your Lessons deck. Because I was playing the Sea Creatures version for a while, and I liked that version. It didn't feel like anything special, but I liked it. And so I was like, I might as well try this version. And, like, after a couple of games, I was like, wait, this deck actually is broken. I was like, okay, like, he found something here.
Yeah,
that's
so
always
cool.
really cool. Yeah, I mean, everyone brews. Usually, your brew is not ever going to actually be anything, so it's really cool that Comrade actually found a list that was insane. It's always exciting.
Tech. And, like, complete admission on my part, like, that's one of... I follow, almost every channel in my Discord, it's mine, I'm there, I participate, but that's one of, like, 2 channels that I just, like, it's not me, guys. I can't, there's strength in knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and I know that, like, I don't have much all that productive to say about that archetype, and so, rather than just, talking for the sake of talking, I'd like to let you guys cook there, so... I was like,
the channels you're least active in are the ones I'm most active in. I feel like we just take turns,
It's definitely helpful, but yeah, I was just like, oh, we're talking about Monument in my like Red Aggro Discord. That's cool. You guys have fun.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I don't care, but you bolt your opponent every 2 turns. It's amazing.
You're not wrong.
I was about to say it's the closest thing we're getting to Lightning Bolt in Standard.
Yeah, low-key probably a better aggro deck than Boros Mice is. I'm just kidding. you can talk about that later.
Yeah.
No, but I mean...
Nick...
Yeah, Monument took over the tournament. I mean, I think it's very interesting because something that me and I'm going to say Nate because that's his name. I'm going to gaslight him. Is something me and Nate were talking about a lot was like there's these Lessons decks that aren't playing Monument, and I always felt like the Monument versions go over the top of the non-Monument version. That was something we were seeing because Jacob Pablo, another content creator, like popularized the Lessons version that was not on Monument, and so that's everyone's like, oh, this version's so good, like it's the best, and I was like, I just why would you play this version when you can play Monument instead? And we kind of saw that in our testing as well, where like we were just bullying these non-Monument decks because Monument goes over the top of what they're doing. You can't really remove a Resolve Monument because no one's playing artifact removal right now. So it was just clear that it was like the best thing to be doing because like people were catching on to the fact that Lessons was a good thing to be doing, but I think Monument was kind of like under the radar a little bit. So yeah, a team CFB or TCG, whatever they are now, they found that, won the whole tournament. You saw Derek Davis's list from Worldly Council, who he top 8 of the event as well, top 4 of the event, but he got mollywopped by Monument Lessons in the top 4 because yeah, that matchup was not good.
It just looks so brutal. And what sucks is like I'm trying to pull up Derek's list. Like looking at Derek's list, I'm like, yeah, I could play this Lessons deck, and then he just got like it just gets deleted by the Monument version. So it's like okay, and then the like Monument, I tried to play it a little bit, and that just like pushes the deck too far out of my comfort zone. I just like sucked, and then I played a mirror, and my opponent cast Ancestral Recall 6 times, and I cast it twice, and I was like, okay, that's enough. But like, I love Derek's deck list.
Yeah.
I
like
think
Derek's
it's
deck list a lot
sick.
too. Like when I saw he was 8-0 day 1 or 7-0, I was like, okay, like this list seems awesome. Like I want to test this list like after Worlds, and then after like 3 Monument decks top 8, and I saw him get destroyed, I was like, okay, no, like this list is good, and it's honestly maybe better against non-Lessons decks, but like in the Lesson head-to-head matchup, it is just horrible.
Yeah, he lost to Sam and Seth in Swiss on day 2, and then got beat by Seth again, of course, in top 8. It's just, it's such a mirror breaker.
It is.
If they ban Monument, maybe I could play Derek's list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ban Monument.
Just kidding. I'm not calling for bans. Don't cancel me or be annoyed.
What else?
Do you want to like talk a little bit about how the deck works? Like, do a light deck tech? I mean, you can say no. I'm asking you this on the spot, but like,
no. So let me pull up a list so I don't like miss anything. But your main engine that you're going to see is your Artist Talent and your Monument to Endurance. Artist Talent just says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you loot. And then Monument says whenever you discard a card, you either draw a card, make a treasure, or bolt your opponent, but you can't do the same thing more than once in the same turn. So the general idea is when you have Artist Talent and Monument in play at the same time, you're just able to kind of storm through your deck. Like, you're drawing way more cards than your opponent. You're like, you have a clock on your opponent. You make treasures. So you're able to do whatever you want. It gets even more insane when you have either an active Grand or a Artist Talent leveled up, because then all your spells cost 1 mana. So at the bare minimum, you're like, cast a spell, make a treasure off Monument. Okay, I just cast a spell for 0 mana. So it really has like these modern Storm elements where you're actually just netting mana almost every single time. And then when you have things like 2 Talents or 2 Monuments to play at the same time, that's when it gets really crazy. Because then it's like, okay, if you have 2 Talents in play, 1 spell is going to give you 2 Monument activations. If you have 2 Monuments in play, then you can easily just like draw 2 off your single spell. So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on when you stack them. Something people missed a lot was Artist Talent and Grand both discount non-creature spells, not instant sorceries. So if you're going to cast a Monument anyway, Grand is like literally free to cast first. Don't miss the opportunity to just like level up your Artist Talent on turn 3 if you're against a matchup that can't remove it. So yeah, and then the other most egregious card in the deck is Accumulate Wisdom, which you'll commonly hear me call Ancestral Recall. That'll be the only time I call it Accumulate Wisdom ever. But that card says 2 mana instant Anticipate, but if you have 3 or more Lessons in your graveyard, you just draw 3 cards instead. And then again, with a Grand discount and Artist Talent discount, which you'll usually always have, it's just actually Ancestral Recall. 1 mana, draw 3. So yeah,
Can I ask you some questions?
sure,
we
yeah,
do
yeah.
some-
We
So
can do an
how
interview.
do you? And you can do like kind of elevator pitch style answers because I know like we could have a 3 hour episode on this probably. So how do you balance, casting Grand Grand as soon as possible so that you can start looting with Grand Grand versus kind of wanting Grand Grand to be alive in like start some of the later turns where you're trying to storm off and really take advantage of the discount.
Well, what's so great about Grand Grand is you're playing 4 copies of it, and you're seeing so much of your deck that I've never like missed having a Grand Grand. Like if I have Grand Grand in my hand, I'm like casting on turn 1 every single time. Like
Nice.
you're gonna see more than half of your deck every single game. So cast your spell on turn 1. I told Jacob yesterday, like spend your mana. Like we were watching him play, he just wasn't casting spells. I was like, spend your mana. Like just cast spells. You're gonna find a new spell next turn to cast anyway. So just like spend your mana every turn.
Which was a lie. I found lands, so
Yeah, that's true.
me casting my spells actually did literally nothing for me.
Yes.
But I know from watching coverage, the only time I like didn't see like Seth or Sam Party like not play their Grand on explicitly turn 1 or like turn 2, and they like kind of slow rolled it to later on. It's like when they're specifically holding up interaction in early turns. Like if they're playing specifically like the 75 card mirror, they'd hold up a null, like one up copy or spell pierce, just in case their opponent tries to resolve an artist talent on turn 2. They have the ability to, because in these blue base matchups, like blue red specifically, you cannot you can boomerang basics this artist talent back to their hand, but that feels terrible. So most of the time, once it sticks, it's there forever. So if they can get it early, they're going to. But other than that, I would just play it on. It's Ragavan, but at 1/2, like
Ragagrand.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind is actually, like, I think it's very, very good on turn 1. I think it's very, very good on turn 8. But, like, turn 4 or 5 is where you actually want to be careful with it. Because if you're just casting it willy-nilly on turn 4 without, like, letting yourself get a mana discount and your opponent just kills it, you're just straight up down a card, right? So, like, if you're just casting on turn 4 and just, like, passing the turn, like, maybe consider holding on to it for 2 turns for, like, a situation where you just go, like, Grand Grand into Talent, into Monument, into Ancestral Recall, and you just cheat it on, like, 3 mana with your Grand Grand. Like, that's... I think the mid-game is actually the only time Grand Grand is a little sus. But it's all going to be context-dependent, so...
Yeah. Okay, cool. And what about artist talent? And, like, when are you leveling up artist talent?
It depends on your hand. I think people don't level artist talent up enough because if you're spending, like, a very common thing I'll see is, like, you're going to turn 2 artist talent, turn 3 monument, turn 4 you have 4 lands, right? Like, if you just cast 2 2-mana spells, like, you didn't really actually, well, how should I phrase this? Like, if you're casting 2 2-mana spells, you may as well level up your artist talent first, because then you can just cast one of your 2-mana spells with your 4th land, make a treasure, and then cast your second 2-mana spell off the treasure and get a trigger, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, it's very common. This line comes up very commonly, so, like, look for it, because it's key to, like, get those mana discounts while you can, because artist talent leveling up, it's costly, right? So, like, you don't want to just do it late game and screw yourself, but, like, if you have opportunities early game to do it, you probably should. I think another really good opportunity to level it up is, like, turn 3, if your opponent is threatening interaction. Like, a common thing you'll see in the Monument Mirrors or against, like, Blue-Eye Control is they'll just, like, hold up Normalize or Quench on your turn 3, anticipating a Monument. So if you just, like, level up talent and pass, they just, like, wasted their 2 mana. Mm-hmm. You get blown out sometimes with them, like, Boomerang basicsing it or Get Losting it, depending on the matchup. But at least with Boomerang, you get it back, so.
Yeah, I kind of suspected the answer might be something like that, because I felt like I saw talent get leveled up a lot more often than I expected, but also the payoff, like, seemed very worth it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when I'm playing against the deck, if someone levels up talent and I don't have an answer for it, it feels like the game ends pretty quickly. Even if my life total doesn't hit 0, it feels like, wow, like it's really impressive once you get a discount on that.
Yeah, it has a lot of similar, like I said, to Modern Storm in that way, where like if you don't have an Electromancer, that's the boomer one now. If you don't have a Ruby in play, like you're spending 2 mana on all these cards, which just feels bad. Like you're spending 2 mana to make 1 off your treasure, and that only happens once a turn. Like that's not particularly good. But once you have a little leveled up talent and you're spending 1 mana on a spell to make a treasure, or again if you have 2 monuments, 1 mana on a spell to make 2 treasures, like that's when it gets really insane. You just don't run out of things to do and you don't run out of mana. It's like when you don't have the mana discount that you need to be a little more careful with what spells you cast and how you want to sequence your turns.
Yeah, so. Cool. Level up your talents. Or at least, consider it a little more than you might usually. And then when it comes to Monument, I guess kind of a two-part question. Like, your simple version of which mode do I choose? I think you've talked about, like, treasure a lot. There's definitely kind of specific cases where you're calculating, I want to cast these spells, so I need a treasure. I think that's straightforward. But kind of more generically, what modes do you choose? And then I think that connects to maybe a more complex question of, like, I feel like one of the best things that this deck does is, like, you kind of get to this point where you deal 6 damage on your turn and then 6 damage in my upkeep and I'm just dead. Or, like, you do 6, 6, 6, like, kind of how do you, a little bit about how you set that up, or how you, like, once you know it's time to kind of, okay, I'm going to kill my opponent now. Like, you spend a lot of time not playing with your food, but like taking game actions, but not killing your opponent. And then there's kind of a point where it's like, oh, you're dead. That's already enough characters in my question.
Yeah, no, I know what you're getting at. I mean, I would say, what's the common thing people say? Like, there's no difference between your opponent being at 1 life versus your opponent being at 20 life. Like, if they're not dead, they're not dead. So, like, remember that making them lose 3 life doesn't affect the board whatsoever. Whereas, like, drawing a card or making a treasure do, in a way, because you're going to find you're going to either draw a card and find a way to interact with them, or you're going to make a treasure to, like, keep your game plan going. So, I would say, generally speaking, I'm not making them lose life unless I already have everything in hand. Like, if I just have, like, multiple Ancestral Recalls and I don't need any more cards, like, I'm not making them lose 3 life early. So that's one thing. Also, something I'll see is if you have a way to trigger your Monument twice, you should generally always choose draw a card first and then make a treasure, because drawing the extra card gives you a little more agency regarding what you want to discard to your second Artist Talent trigger. You'll see it very commonly with Abandoned Attachments, where you cast Abandoned Attachments and you have 2 discards. You have your discard from the Artist Talent and you have a discard from the Abandoned Attachments. You usually want to draw first, because then you get to look at 2 cards that you want to discard rather than just the 1. There's also these awkward situations where you Abandon Attachments and you discard off Artist Talent, and then you draw, like, a better card, and then you don't want to discard that card anymore, so then you're, like, in the really awkward situation of, do I just, like, decline the Abandoned Attachments now, or do I discard this good card, So it's always better to draw first in a situation where you're getting 2 triggers anyway. Another
also, paper, right? Remember that, like, when you cast your spell and you resolve your Artist Talent before you resolve your Monument, right? So, like, you will discard a card to Artist Talent if you choose to, and then you will draw, and then you will resolve Monument, right? Like, it's very good representation on Arena when you play it, but, like, so that it helps you set up, like, what you want to do with your Monument based off what you draw off your talent loot. So don't commit to, I'm doing this thing off my Monument without seeing what you draw off your talent first.
Yeah, just to extend a little bit before we get back into the deck tech, Magic basics and fundamentals, be very, like, clear and methodical. This deck has a lot of triggers, and it's really important to do everything in order and one at a time. I would, like, really discourage shortcutting or rushing through things. The Abandoned Attachments triggers your Artist Talent. You need to do Artist Talent first. Then you're going to trigger Monument. That also happens before your Abandoned Attachments resolves. And it's not until all that's done that now you move to Abandoned Attachments and you resolve this spell. There's so much going on. You got to make sure you hit every note and you're doing it in the right order. Because especially since you're drawing cards, there's not really going to be takebacks, and you can definitely miss things or resolve things incorrectly, which can be problematic in paper. Drawing cards when you shouldn't, or drawing too many cards, carries penalties with it. You don't want to put yourself in that spot.
Yep, for sure. Something else that I think is important with triggering Monument is the mirror. It sucks. Prepare yourself for a horrible, miserable time playing the mirror. But something important is usually the first person to bolt their opponent with Monument first, that person usually ends up winning the game because they're already just one turn ahead of you. Because the thing about these Monument mirrors is otter beats are usually not going to win the game because there's just so much cheap single target removal. So the games come down single-handedly to Monument, right? So if you're in a situation where you get bolted by your opponent first, like, again, they're automatically one turn ahead of you, so unless you have this an insane turn where you deploy double Monument and bounce the opponent's Monument back to their hand or something, like, you're just super far behind. Because, again, you win in increments, right? Like, you can only bolt one time every single turn. So even if you have all these cards and you're like, okay, like, I finally got it, if you're at 5 and your opponent's at 18, like, you physically cannot trigger your Monument enough times for before they trigger theirs. So keep that in mind as well. Don't just bolt your opponent because of that. Like, still, you should look at your hand, decide, like, do I have enough gas to trigger this every single turn? If the answer is no, then you should just draw a card. But if the answer is, like, maybe, then you should probably just bolt them because it's very important to get on the board first. So yeah, I think that's a key one.
Cool.
I mean, I think we saw last night. Also, there was like matchups like Reanimator is a really bad matchup for you. So like, there's an evaluation that you have to make early on like what resources do I have and how, because like the deck's very good at like putting much power into play super quickly and killing you. So you have to kill them quickly, which you don't necessarily do. You kind of like snowball a bunch. So especially in like the post-board game when you have like better interaction, you have to really make a decision on when are you pivoting to I need to trigger this monument every single turn to make them lose life. And then I mean it gets a lot easier when you have multiple monuments in play, but they also play a 3-mana enchantment that says destroy target monument or destroy target artist talent and whatever, awaken the honored dead. So that's a hard one to beat if you don't specifically have a counter spell for it. But yeah.
And the last card I wanted to talk about a little bit was Boomerang Basics. I'll, instead of giving you a 2-part question, I'll do like one at a time. So, just continuing the monument conversation and your like kind of talk about the race and you can only do 3 damage at a time. One thing that I think it was Seth who did it when he was like way overkilling his opponent in top 8 or 4. But he actually Boomerang Basics his own monument so that he could then like recast it and trigger it all again. And I didn't see that coming at all. I was like, whoa. And like at that point he was kind of just playing with his food. Is that a line that you think comes up here and there? Or was that kind of like, he was so far ahead. He was just playing with his food. Like, have you ever had a chance to do that? Is that something that, you know, maybe sometimes you can use to kind of flip the clock if you have enough resources?
I've actually done that 0 times. Like, I'm sure it does come up, especially with mirrors now, because again, like, that's another way you can get it like ahead on the clock is you bolt them, return it to your hand, replay it, bolt them. But like, that is a lot of mana. Like, even on these turns where you are like going crazy, like, you have to remember, like, Boomerang doesn't get discounted. Monument is still 2 mana off a discount, right? So it's like,
or 1 if you have like,
or 1 if you have 2 discounts, yeah. But generally speaking, I would say like Boomerang's always going to be 1, Monument's always going to be 2.
Okay.
So like, unless you're massively far ahead, like, that's a pretty huge mana commitment. So look for it, like, keep that in mind, because it is a good way to get ahead on the clock or like dig for an answer if you really need to draw a card desperately. But I've been playing it for a month now and I've literally never done that. So like,
okay,
it's just a cool thing that like your win percentage will increase if you remember you can do that. But like, I don't know how often it realistically comes up.
Nice. And last question. So I assume, you know, Boomerang plan A is you want to bounce your own stuff, you want to draw a card. Um, what what does it look like when you're like, okay, I'm gonna bounce your thing? What's gonna kind of make you feel like it's worth it, or you have to kind of waste the boomerang on your opponent's permanent?
I feel like I'm honestly still figuring that out. But one key thing I would say is remember that it's just a very cheap way to get lessons in your graveyard. So, like, if I have an accessory call and not a lot of lessons in my graveyard, like, I'll just throw it just to get something in my graveyard so I can cast the ancestral recall to dig for more. Another one that I feel like people might not do enough that is really good in my opinion is Boomerang Basicsing the turn 1 Mana Dork from the green decks, because like the worst thing that could happen to you is turn 1 Mana Dork into turn 2 Badger Mole, cast a second 2-drop, whereas like if that happens you're just very far behind. But if you at least Boomerang Basics the 1-drop back to their hand, like they can't replay the 1-drop the following turn if they cast a Badger Mole Cub because it costs both their lands to do it. And that deck just operates off mana advantage, so like setting them back that turn can be a big deal. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but a nice opportunity to use it in the mirror is when they level up talent, because that's 5 mana they committed into their artist talent. So if you're able to just return that to the hand for 1 mana, that's a really nice way to swing the game back. But yeah, I mean, like I would use it as like I think I've cast it more as Void Snare than I have as a like bounce my own thing, just because you only have 4 to 5 ways to bounce your own thing. So it's like it's really cool when it happens, but like, it really doesn't happen that much, I feel like, in the grand scheme of your games, at least like in the early game. Like maybe late game you're casting it way more often because you've seen half your deck. But yeah, I this is something I was talking to Jacob about yesterday too, actually, because Boomerang Basics, when it is Void Snare, is like a really bad card, but when it is this 1 mana draw to, it's insane, right? So I was talking about how like Seth, I feel like, understood this, and Derek understood this, because you see Seth, he's actually only on 3 Boomerang Basics in his list, because he was like, okay, like you only have 4 ways, like 4 cards you realistically want to bounce with it, so like it's really just going to be Void Snare half the time, Forcer's a bad card, like I don't want as many copies. Whereas like Derek kind of took the opposite approach, which I like a lot more, where he said Boomerang Bases is a broken card, like I want to cast it on my own thing as much as possible, so I'm going to still play 4, but I'm going to play a 5th way to, or a 5th card I want to bounce in. He was saying Roiling Dragonstorm. Roaring Furnace is probably better. I'm on Roaring Furnace, but the concept is still the same, where like you're playing more cards in your deck to cast Boomerang Bases on, because when you're targeting your own thing, it's a broken card, but when you're targeting your opponent's thing, it's like not the best.
Derek also had crab, so like playing crab in a turn, like tap your 2 dudes, next turn attack you a crab, bounce the crab back to my hand, get another card, and then like repeat the process is like really
nasty.
cool. I do know that there is a very specific card type that Lessons cannot beat if it resolves, which are Planeswalkers, right? So like a card that I know Nick and I were kind of concerned about was the card Kaido. I think Dimir is not a... I'm not going to say it's a good matchup, but it's felt very good.
And it's a great matchup. What I've said is I think Dimir is like a great matchup, but like the card Kaido is not a good matchup, right? Like if they Kaido me on turn 3, like I feel behind. But if they do not that, I like don't think I can ever lose the match.
I think it's very specific that like if you know you were playing against Dimir, you have to keep a hand that can interact with their ability to play a Kaido on turn 3. Like, if you do not have that, I'm not saying just mulligan until you have that, but, like, you have to understand that you might literally lose the game because your opponent put a Kaido into play on turn 3. So accept that and move on with your life, and don't be upset if you lose to getting Kaido on turn 3 because you didn't keep a hand that can interact with a turn 3 Kaido. And then also in the mirror, like, one of the best cards to resolve in the mirror, which it's kind of hard to find the right spot to resolve it, but if you do, like, you're so far ahead, is Rao. Like, Rao is, like, once it hits the board, like, I know last night Nick was watching me play a game where, like, literally over the course of, my opponent resolved a Rao, got it up to 6, like plussed it, played a spell, got up to 6, and then next turn ulted Rao, and I was like, I literally can't beat. Like, I cannot win the game anymore because my opponent like has a monument in play with no artist talent, but it doesn't matter because every spell they cast, like, they're just getting multiple copies. So, like, yep.
Yeah. So, something I've talked a lot about with this deck too is I think the similarities to this deck and Phoenix are just Pioneer Phoenix are like they're the exact same deck, honestly, if you think about it. And I think the mirror specifically is the exact same in the sense that like once one player gets ahead, that player has won the game. Like they can't really get ahead. That's just not how the mirror works. And I think in that same regard, Ral is this really weird card that it's like it's very, very vulnerable to Spell Piercing Quench. Like, if Spell Piercing Quench is cast on your Ral, like, the game ends. Like, I was playing a Mirror yesterday, and I cast a Ral on turn 4, my opponent Spell Pierced it. I was like, alright, like, I'm just dead now. But, like, if the Ral does resolve, like, it's gonna win the game, because you can't really remove a Ral. Like, they're gonna Boomerang base it, you can just, like, replay it, you know? So, it's a very interesting dynamic to balance, because, like I said, on one hand, it's very vulnerable to your counter magic, on the other hand, it goes over the top. So that'll be interesting to see how people choose to sideboard going forward. I still need like
right. So it's like
yeah.
Sometimes you're like, oh, I only have 3 mana, and like I need to dig for more resources. Like if I discard my Ral to abandon attachments or artist talent, I'm never getting this Ral back. It's like legitimately just a dead card.
Yeah.
So.
I did that yesterday. Like I'm testing the Unagi of Kyoshi Island. Like card's very, very powerful, but it's 5 mana, right? I just like had like this Ral and Unagi in my hand. I'm like, I'm never casting these. I just like discarded them both to my artist talent and just went on with my day, you know? Like so like that's the Phoenix Mirror is all about mana efficiency and gaining little advantages here and there. Like Ral and Unagi are the exact opposite of that. They're spending 5 mana, 4 mana on this huge card that just gets countered, right? Like, I don't think that's how you should approach the mirror, but I do agree with Jacob saying, like, if Ral resolves, like, you're now ahead. Like, even if your opponent has a monument out, like, Ral can beat a resolved monument. So, I don't know.
Don't say it, Jacob. Cool.
6-7?
Oh. Well, Jacob was a little pent up and really wanted to talk because we went from like the Boomerang Basics deck tech to like Demir. So just to like circle back and tie a bow on that, sounds like kind of functionally it's relatively balanced how often you're bouncing your own stuff versus your opponent's stuff, but you really want to be bouncing your own stuff and like playing a 5th or I'm not going to say 6th because Nick's not testing it, but like playing the 5th bounceable permanent like Roiling Dragonstorm or Roaring Furnace is a nice way to deck build towards making that happen.
I was watching Jacob play a game yesterday where I kid you not, his opponent goes Grand, Boomerang their own Grand, draw a card. Grand, Boomerang their own Grand again, and I'm like this is what I mean. Like Boomerang Bases is either going to be like the best card in your deck, or it's honestly going to be the worst card. Like he literally just spent 4 mana to draw 2 cards. It's like what are we doing? And spent 2 cards to do it, right? So it's just like it feels horrible. So.
It was also one of those positions where I was playing the mirror, and like sometimes you have to accept that you lost a game because like. There's literally no way you can come back unless, like, exactly your opponent has, like, 7 cards in hand, all 7 of them are lands, and you draw a runner, and they can't interact with you, with the odds of that happening are so low. Where, like, my opponent literally had 3 cards in hand. One of them was a Grand, one of them was Boomerang Basics and Unknown, and I had 6 cards in hand. And I think one of them was land and 5 of them were spells. And I had an Artist Talent and a Monument in play, and my opponent's like, well, I gotta try to get back in this game. And I don't think there was any way that they were getting back in that game whatsoever anyway, so... I'm not saying they should have conceded. What I'm saying is, like, sometimes you have to, like, accept your losses. I know Nick was watching a game last night where I, like, Lily conceded on turn 3 because I was like, there's no way I can win this game. And then one of our friends who was also watching me was like, well... And I was like, well, what do you expect me to do there? Like, I'm trying to save, like, my mental fortitude to get ready for the next game. I am not an optimist. I am a pessimist.
Who was it?
It's Carson.
Oh, yeah.
He's an optimist. He would have found if you draw this, you do that, you might win.
Good old Carson. All right, so that was our Izzet Lessons deck tech. Thanks, Nick. I think that was a cool segment. We haven't done something like that in a while. I'm gonna just like run through. I'm looking at the standard metagame win rates and just like say words and you guys can chime in wherever. So, Izzet Lessons most played deck 23 57% win rate. Stock it up. Teamer Otters, 20 players. People thought, oh my god, it's finally Otters time. Deck still sucks. Deck still doesn't do anything. 43.9% win rate. I don't like actively hate Otters. I just like never seen that deck do anything. And it did put a copy in top 8, but then like in top 8, two copies in that's crazy. Like I
Yeah,
saw
they played the mirror. Like literally, the
oh
quarterfinals match
right
was the mirror. It was Arne
right
versus the person from Melbourne. I don't remember their name
yeah,
off the top of
and
my
I
head.
saw
But
the
Sean
top
Henry.
four match where Otters played, and it's just like he played well and he made top four of worlds. But I'm like watching this match and I'm like, this Otters deck does nothing. This deck just doesn't do anything. I don't understand how people keep like. Part of it's because I'm an aggro player, but like even when I watch other people like play with Otters or against Otters, I don't know. I've just never seen that deck do anything.
Well,
It's crazy.
one thing I will say is I think Otters does fall into the camp of is it decks that can't beat Monument, because I think Monument once again just goes over the top of what Otters is doing, and I think it was very apparent in like all the games I saw of Otters versus Monument. And I played against Otters like 3 times now in RCQs, and I've just like beat all of them because again like Monument just goes over the top what they're doing so easily.
Yeah, it Otters still just like appeals to the same audience of like I guess if you love Otters, go for it. Um, Ban airbending, 16 players, 35% win rate. The brutality. Don't bend the air, boys. Do literally anything else.
This is a good call out for everyone who is calling for the ban of the deck, like literally week 1 of the format, and then Worlds happens as a 35% win rate. Like this is why we don't.
Yeah.
This is why we don't call for bans like week 1, guys. Like
Yeah, Badger Bolt and Aang got wrecked at Worlds.
yeah.
Is it looting? 14 players, only 42% win rate. I actually think that deck looks really cool, but I guess I'm not that surprised because Lessons is just seems so much more streamlined and easy. Like the looting deck has a lot of A plus Bs, and as like leyline players, we know that when you only have A or you only have B, your life kind of sucks. So at least at a glance, I'm not an expert on the deck, but like to me, that deck looks really cool. But it looks like it has a lot of A plus Bs, so I'm not surprised that the the Lessons deck just overshadowed it. Pretty hardcore, but it's still a powerful deck doing powerful things.
You know, something I did want to say too, while you're like reading off win rates and everything, going back to your conversation complaining about the how people name decks, I would be very curious to see how like Monument specifically did, because I think all the Izzet Lesson decks kind of got lumped in the exact same category, right?
Yeah.
But you had like what I call the bad Izzet Lesson decks, those ones that weren't playing Monument,
Or
and the
Derek
good
Davis.
Izzet Lesson decks that were playing Monument. You know, well, honestly, Derek Davis was good. I'm like trashing on the people who were playing like the Planisphere versions.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Okay.
I think that version is just horrible. So like Derek Davis's list at least like is it Control? Feel like that list is good. I just think it's bad against Monument.
Yeah.
But anyway, I would be very curious to see how like is it Monument did and how is it Lessons did, because I'm pretty sure someone did crunch that and they said it had like a 64% win rate or something.
I bet there's someone on Twitter who would do it for you. There's like a guy.
I think
who
so.
does that.
Yeah, that's just what I remember. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, still going back, like is it Lessons and is it Monument are two different decks. Like I think they should be categorized as such. But
Yeah, and I do, I guess. So I'm being a little unfair because I was pretty mean to Otters, and then I was like, but Izzet Looting is a good deck, and Izzet Looting actually had like 1% less win rate, so I don't know though. Just seriously, like looting seems like an A plus B, and if you only have one half, then your deck kind of sucks. But when you're online, the deck is crazy. So I've seen looting be very good and very bad. I just like haven't seen Otters do anything. I don't know why. I've just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sorry, Otter fans. I feel a little bad, but anyway.
I think
Um,
the deck just like everything that I've seen about it, like when I watch gameplay over the course of the tournament, is it's like a lot of like casting spells to set up, and it's like if your opponent has any reasonable clock against you or does like anything that interacts, like you're just I don't know how you win the game.
yeah,
Like I saw I don't know, I think it's like one of the first matches of the day was the guy who had like the best limited record over the course of all the PTs across the year, who was like I think he got like ninth or 10th or something like that, and he just like cast three stock ups in a row. And his opponent just like had pressure in play and it didn't matter. So
I think if anyone I loved played Otters, every morning I would send them the Mean Girls meme of like, stop trying to make Otters work. Like I would just like remake the meme. I don't even remember what's in Mean Girls. Stop trying to make. What are they trying to make work? One of you knows. Come on, Nick, go ask
isn't it
Julia.
like plaid or
I was
like
like, Juliet
flannel or
would know. I
something?
wish she was here. We gotta phone her in.
Dang. Yeah, I would just every morning I would send them stop trying to make otters work as a meme until they made a better choice. Anyway, I promise I'm gonna stop making fun of otters now. Just got control, which as Jacob pointed out, maybe control is a bit inaccurate. 58.9% with 10 players. So just got control cooked. Nobody made top 8, but Mitchell made 12th place. The tech with Spider Gwen was pretty cool. I don't think Mitchell was playing Spider Gwen. This looks like kind of a normal just guy control list. But that's there if you're into that kind of self punishment that also makes your opponent sad. Izzet Prowess, which is actually Izzet Scam. 9 players, 57.4%. Also, very good win rate. Turns out Riddler is still a good card. Who would have thought? The list is like the good Izzet cards, basically. Like it's just Izzet good cards. You scam in Riddler. Seems cool. Not aggressive enough for me, but seems cool. Ouroboros got dumped on. Simic Ouroboros, 7 players, 38.7%. So right in the same category as Airbending. Just got totally destroyed. So Badger Mole Cub can't. Badger Mole Cub and Aang in World's win rates way underperformed compared to Lessons or the like current staples of Riddler and Sultai Reanimator, for example. 6 players, 61% win rate, the highest win rate on the Matrix, unless they had a separate line for Monument. I think Monument would be over that, but Reanimator is still a powerful deck doing a powerful thing. I have 4 pieces of Graveyard Hate in all my sideboards because red decks are not faster than Sultai Reanimator. I'm not going to say her name, but I miss her. Screaming Nemesis. I'll say her name since Nick was like giving me the eyes. Golgari Ouroboros, 5 players, 53.6%. Pretty good showing. Carson played this deck at the recent RCQ. He got his invite with it. Congratulations, Carson. And
Crushing me in the finals.
I was gonna leave that out, but honestly, the deck looked really impressive. Nature's Rhythm, as a way to either just like get Badger Mole or get Cub, but also to get Deep Cavern Bat or some kind of piece of sideboard tech is really cool. The fact that the card has flashback is insane. And like you have all your mana dorks, you have Badger Mole Cub, so like accelerating into that very expensive card isn't that hard. I didn't see the deck on coverage at all, but Carson playing it, I was pretty impressed, and I think that black is a powerful color in Magic. Replacing Simic's like tempo-y or just like I'm gonna play all my cards and hope you die with interaction makes a lot of sense. So that deck is pretty cool. And then I don't know why I guess they put Jeskai artifacts on the board to like make sure it didn't drag down other too much because that was 31.6% with 4 players. Sorry, folks.
Hey, I found that info for you, Nick, on the difference between Izzet Lessons with monuments versus without.
Ron coming in clutch.
Lessons was a 62.6% win rate. Without monument, it was a 45.1% win rate.
That difference is insane.
That's an insane difference.
If that doesn't tell you that
It's what,
Izzet Planisphere sucks.
17% margin of difference?
Yeah, that's a huge number.
Yeah, so
Huge.
that puts Monument even above Reanimator at 62 point something. How many? Does it say how many players were on the Monument build?
14.
14? Not bad. That's more than I expected. And the non-Monument. If you're gonna play Lessons, play Monument. Jeez, what an insane.
I just think it's the best
disparity.
bag. Like, I have played a lot of this. I don't think I've played as much as Nick has. I might be close, though, low-key, because Nick has...
You're grinding constantly.
Yeah, I have been grinding a lot recently.
Every time I open Discord, I see you sharing your screen. I'm like, oh, there he is playing Monument again.
But, like, this is, like, we're falling into, like, the Cutter VV scenario again, like, where people are main decking hate, and it literally does not matter whatsoever. Like, I played against Mono White Token Control that was main decking Rest in Peace, High Noon, and...
That's not a real deck. We'll move on to the next thing. That deck is so
They were playing the hate cards, and they didn't
matter. It doesn't matter. Like, actually, I'm going to cut you off.
Also in the main deck.
I'm going to cut you off, and I'm going to say something for our aggro listeners. Because if you're one of the few people hanging out that's still holding on to aggro, you might actually be here. There's not a lot of us, but if you're still trying to play aggro, you might be listening. And there's a big difference, and I was actually talking to A-Day about this today, my boy. There's a big difference between a hate card and a hate card plus pressure. Because Nick and I were talking about my Boros Mice deck, and Nick was in a good mood, so he was being nice to me. And he was saying, like, rest in peace plus pressure is a good way to beat the Lessons Monument deck. And we like had a longer conversation about, Boros Mice and some of the upsides. And I shared that with Alex just because it was the easiest way for me to kind of like give him the update on Boros Mice. And the first thing he said, which is something that I've seen many people said, is like, oh, I heard Rest in Peace is bad against the Lessons deck. And he's like, but I heard it from this person, so I know you won't care. I won't say who. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I could just like say Nick is way better than that person, and I like didn't care about their opinion anyway. So, but I know you care about the why, and so I kind of talked to him about like if a deck like Mono White Tokens just puts Rest in Peace in play, like yeah. Who cares? The tempo player has all day and a half to just accumulate resources, set up a big turn, and if they need their graveyard, they can like bounce it, right? The same with like I'm playing Seam Rip, and I could Seam Rip Artist Talent. And if I'm Seam Ripping Artist Talent and casting a second Hired Claw on the same turn, and then on turn 3, I'm like casting Manifold Mouse plus Seam Rip to exile their next talent, like when you are applying pressure and playing hate pieces, your opponent doesn't have time to both like set up the harder version of the combo and deal with your aggression and or like deal with your hate pieces. Like you're breathing down their neck and you're making their life harder, and this is a very effective way to beat a deck like Izzet Lessons. But if I'm just gonna play my thing and like, all right, Rest in Peace, solo the game for me, like no, that's not going to do it. Sorry, Mono White player. Your deck doesn't do anything. Eventually, the Izzet deck is just going to kill you anyway. So, just like remember that your hate pieces are good because you back them up with aggression. It's the same reason that like we play grindy cards for the grindy matchup, but if you only have grindy cards, you lose. You're like, oh yeah, I've got 4 stock ups in my deck, it's post board, like I'm totally gonna beat the control player. I'm gonna keep Emberheart Challenger, 2 stock ups, and 4 lands. I'm gonna have something. You just lost. This is a terrible keep. Like, your grindy cards are not the thing that solo the game for you. Your hate cards are not the thing that like solo the game for you. The thing that like wins games is by like applying pressure while you use something very efficient to disrupt your opponent, so that they either can't get off the ground or they can't slow you down as much. And yeah, hate piece versus hate piece plus pressure, 2 completely different things. There is no card that's gonna ever just solo an Izzet deck. They have Void Snare. They're not gonna get soloed by any given hate piece. But if you're applying pressure, that's one of the ways you can do it. But I agree with what you're saying. Like, in a vacuum, Rest in Peace, not that great. Like, there's plenty of cards that aren't that great, and that's part of the reason that, like, yeah, the control players that went to Worlds did really well, but those are, like, the best players in the world. I wouldn't suggest going and being like, no, that's a great way for me to go win matches. You're probably going to have a bad time if you're not a control expert. End of speech.
I agree.
Nailed it. Thanks, Nick.
Something I'll touch on while there's a dead period. I think Jacob started talking about how we're going through this circle where like people are playing all these hate cards for Izzet. They're not going to do anything. I think it's interesting we're back to Mono Red, Razorkin Needlehead, Scalding Viper, Magebane Lizard. People are playing that. People are winning with it. And I will say, I don't think we're in a VV situation. I think we're more in like a cutter situation where VV, everyone gaslit themselves into thinking that Mono Red beat VV, even though it wasn't true. Like, the only reason Mono Red did so good against VV at Orlando specifically was because everyone thought like VV was the only deck, so they just cut all their Torso Towers for Flood Maws, and then they just couldn't beat Mono Red anymore, right? So like people kind of gaslit themselves into thinking VV was the only deck when it really wasn't. Whereas now, I feel like Lessons is not so egregiously good that it's the only deck in Standard. Like, I think it's the best deck. There's always going to be a best deck, but I do not think it's the only deck you can play. And the Mono Red deck with, Vipers and Razorkins, I think is problematic. And I think something important, too, that Stanley touched on is that Graveyard Hate alone isn't really enough to stop the deck, but I think Graveyard Hate plus Pressure is. And so I was playing some like test games with my friend, and he would just like slam 3 of these hate bears that I can't, like, if I kill them all, great, and then like followed up with a Soul Eye Lantern. I'm like, okay, now I'm in like a really bad spot because I spent all my resources killing his threats, and now my Ancestor Recall is just an Anticipate. Like, that's way worse than Ancestor Recall. So I just don't have a way to actually get back in the game and get enough resources back to turn this game around. So all that to say, I do think Mono Red looks to be a good choice right now at beating Lessons. The problem I have with Mono Red is I don't know if Mono Red beats real decks. That's the problem I have with it.
The other problem with, like, that version, the, like, Needlekin, Viper, one-drops, is it's just so soft to Pyroclasm. And as much as, like, the Badger decks got their, like, butts kicked, Badger decks are still going to be popular. Like, people spent a lot of money on it. They, like, lost at Worlds, but they're not bad decks. And so, like, Pyroclasm and Fire Magic are going to continue to be popular, and it's just such an efficient answer to those. Red can go over the top with, like, Nova and those kinds of cards, but you're going to have some, like, games, especially, like, just Izzet has all the tools to adapt, right? And so you're going to have some games where you, like, go Claw, Hate Bear, and your opponent goes Pyroclasm, and you're like, oh.
I mean, I'm more worried about my opponent going Superior Spider-Man Living End, like that. Like, if you do not specifically have a piece of graveyard interaction for that deck, like you just hard lose to that deck. Like I don't know. I don't think I've ever beat. Even when we had Screaming Nemesis, I had a hard time beating that Superior Spider-Man deck, and now like you actually have very little ways to beat it.
Yeah, that was going to be the next deck that I wanted to kind of circle back and talk about a little bit more. But to Nick's point, I definitely agree. Lessons is the best deck, but it's definitely not VV. It's not nearly as unbeatable, and even just, your engine to get to the unfair state, you need talent and monument and maybe even a grand or to like level up your talent. Like you have to assemble a lot more pieces, whereas like VV was just like, all right, I'm gonna combo on turn 3 now with like from nothing. Vivi was able to take empty board states and kill you, or like put fucking 50 power on the board. Like there's no,
So that's exactly that, right? Like Vivi could just flood maw your Razorkin Needlehead and then put 50 power in play on turn 3, right? Like the Monument deck, every amount of mana it has to spend killing a Razorkin Needlehead and a Scouting Viper, because it has to kill Razorkin Needlehead and Scouting Viper. That's mana they're not spending on casting a Monument or leveling up a talent or casting Ancestral Recall, right? So like just casting creatures that I have to remove, it's just a great way of swinging the game in your favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Reanimator, 61% win rate. Ken Yukihiro made top 8. The deck has continued to be very good. I think it had the best non-VV win rate before bans. It was fantastic at those spotlights. The deck has been, killing it. It was the easiest thing to point to when they banned Screaming Nemesis, and it was like, are you kidding me? We're banning like our 46% win rate number 7 deck that like that's like not even very good because it's just a counter to the best deck and it still loses to the best deck. But we're just gonna leave Sultai Reanimator, which is just roasting people. So good for Ken and the 5 other lads who took Sultai Reanimator and kicked butt at Worlds. The deck is really powerful. It's really hard to beat. I am playing 4 pieces of Graveyard Hate in all of my decks. I have 4 Soul Guide Lanterns in my Leyline deck. I have 2 Lanterns and 2 Rest in Peace in my Boros deck. Because I like Lantern because it only costs 1 mana. And as we've talked about, like, you kill them with pressure plus disruption, not just disruption. So I like Lantern better against Reanimator because it's only 1 mana, and so it's easier for me to apply the pressure. But I recently changed it to 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Lantern, because Rest in Peace is just so much better against the Lessons deck. Lantern isn't embarrassing against Lessons, but it's pretty. It's kind of a short-term solution, whereas like Rest in Peace actually just like shuts it off. So I feel pretty like confident boarding in Rest in Peace against the deck that I'm going to get value out of the card, whether I play it early or late. I am taking away a lot of value. Lantern a little bit less so. So I'm willing to pay the 2 mana there. But yeah, Reanimator is a very good deck, and I've have multiple people that I, talk to in coaching situations where, I've suggested you should play some Reanimator. Newer players or people who are just like struggling a little bit, because one thing I guess I'll briefly, do the aggro player talk. Like when I started playing competitively, red aggro was unplayable. Like Nick loves to be like, dude, I don't know how you made an RC and then day 2 with that unplayable trash that you like made in your apartment with like no one but Reddit to bounce ideas off of, because like those decks were terrible. I don't like red was unplayable, and I kind of consistently did well with it. But I like grew up in this meta of like red is bad, and the only way that I can like win matches is if I beat my opponent. My deck's not going to beat them. I have to beat them. And there's like several avenues that I can take to do that. But now there's this like new wave of aggro players who didn't go through that, and they're used to like, oh, like my deck can win the matches for me. I'll just play my cards and my opponent dies. Like we had Gruul Mice, which was just the epitome of like, I'll play my cards and you're gonna die. Like I don't have to do anything. I don't even have to like play at instant speed. Like you'll just die and my cards are really strong. And now we have circled back to a place where if you're gonna play red aggro, you really have to outplay your opponent, which is one of the hardest things to do in Magic. And it's definitely not kind of if you're in the earlier stages of playing competitive, that's not where you want to be. You want your deck to be putting in a fair amount of legwork so that you can kind of focus on fundamentals. And Reanimator is such an easy suggestion, even though I won't be able to coach them on that specific deck. It's like you should play some games with Reanimator because it's very powerful. It's very resilient. The 4 copies of the freaking Awaken the Honored Dead to just dead your graveyard hate is so good. It's a powerful deck. It has been a powerful deck. It shows up in all these win rate matrices being a very powerful deck. And you just play your cards and your opponent dies. I'm sure there's some complexity to like plenty of scenarios, but especially game ones and the core gameplay loop is just like, yeah, I'm gonna do the thing, and you're probably not gonna stop me. And that's it. Yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now because I'm not a combo expert, so maybe I'll get a minor correction to some of what I'm saying.
No, I mean we were trying to find a deck for Dom, who we love Dom, but Dom's still he's still learning the ropes of how to play
Dom.
competitive Magic, So we were like, okay, what's a good deck for Dom? And me and Carson like kind of came to the same conclusion at the same time. We were like, why don't you just say Spider-Man? Like you just cast a card Spider-Man, you probably win unless your opponent stops you, and then if they do, you just cast these other good cards in your deck. Like Spider-Man seems kind of perfect for him.
That's what I've been saying to everyone. Couldn't agree more.
Very easy to learn and like medium to master, I would say. Like you just have to understand that you have to destroy the card rest in peace and like that you're fine. So
and it's still Magic, and Magic is still a complicated game, and no one should ever like, I don't want to play that deck because it's easy or because people think it's like, that's a very stupid way to think. And like Magic is still a complex game with a lot of layers, and there's still so much you could learn playing a deck like that. There's so many fundamentals. There's a lot of triggers. Your cards have a lot of text. You have to still do everything right, and you have to post board. You have to learn how to sideboard with a combo deck. You have to learn how to fight through hate with a combo deck. You have to make sure that you're like not overboarding and suddenly like you don't have a combo to combo off and you're like, all right, I destroyed all your hate, but I don't have a combo left in my deck to like kill you with. So there's still a lot of important and valuable skills that you will learn by mastering a deck like Reanimator, but you will objectively get more wins without like having to play perfect and without having to like really outplay your opponent. Right now red aggro, outside of maybe this mono red versus Lessons, is in a spot where all right, I made one misplay, so I lost, and that's not where most players want to be. You don't want your margins to be that thin, and those are margins that red aggro was on for a long time, and it feels like we're probably back to that or pretty close to it. Reanimator though, sick deck, very powerful. I hate it, but I recommend it anyway.
I might have a hot take, just maybe, but I don't know. I have like literally no statistics to support this whatsoever. I really want to try like this ally deck. It actually seems like fun, and I don't know.
So draft it. Just go play draft.
I guess.
Yeah, don't play limited.
But, I don't know. They reprinted Thalia's Lieutenant. They have like a Magebane Lizard, actually card that's technically better than Magebane Lizard versus Lessons. You have card on turn 1 that protects.
What card
Magebane
is
Lizard.
better than Magebane Lizard against Lessons?
The one that makes
What are
you
we
lose
talking?
2 every time you cast a non-creature spell.
The card that does a Firebending Lesson?
You have a 1-drop that you can sack to give it indestructible.
Alright.
I'm not reaching here. I'm just saying, like, you have main board graveyard hate and a 3/3. Like, you have like main board ways to destroy artifacts and enchantments. Like, I'm not saying like the deck's good. I have no statistics to back this deck is good. I'm just saying, like, I feel like the pieces might be there, maybe.
Alright.
Someone 5 a league with it. Same.
That means the most broken deck in
They're
Standard.
they're better than me. I can't remember the last time I 5 a league.
Alright, so that's actually a good transition point. If you want to cope and play something that might actually be good and has cards that don't die to Firebending Lesson, I'm actually super vibing with Boros Mice right now. And I made a change that I think is a really, really big deal. And I'm like debating internally whether I should have made this change earlier. But it feels really good right now because with Lessons taking over as the king of Izzet, we've also seen a transition from Torch the Tower to Firebending Lesson. Not that Torch the Tower isn't played at all, but Firebending Lesson is far and away much more popular, especially game 1. And that means that 3 toughness being a really key breakpoint is back on the menu. And so I actually have swapped out Cheeky House Mouse, aka Bone Crusher Mouse, which has a ton of text on it, and I do think is a good card. But I've swapped it out for Valley Quest Caller, which is a 2-mana 2/3. So it's a way to spend 2 mana that doesn't die to Firebending Lesson, which is a big deal. In addition to being a 2-mana 2/3, it gives all of your mice +1/+1. So now Flowerfoot Soldier, Emberheart Challenger, and Manifold Mouse do not die to Firebending Lesson. So if you cast this on turn 2, not only is your 1-drop protected, but your future 2-drops are protected. And so it does a really good job invalidating what probably in opening hand evaluation looks and feels like one of the most important cards in the matchup. And it also lets you scry every time a mouse comes in, which is pretty cool if you like Offspring Flowerfoot Soldier and get to scry 1 twice. It's a card that I don't remember who top 8'd. I think it was Baltimore with Boros Mice, but they were playing Valley Quest Caller. And at the time, I wasn't like a big fan of investing 2 mana in a 2/3 in the VV meta that felt like it was frequently going to be punishing. But with this little shift, Valley Quest Caller suddenly actually looks really, really good. And Valley Might Caller has kind of overperformed to an insane degree. Valley Might Caller is the 3/3 for 3 Lizard Lord that says whenever a mouse or lizard you control would deal damage, deal that much +1 instead. And what's really cool about that is he's not legendary, which Mabel is, and he buffs Hired Claw, which Mabel doesn't. And because he buffs damage, you attack for 4 with your Hired Claw, because you ping for 2 instead of 1, and then your 1 damage in combat would also do 2. And the funny thing is, he, 1, buffs himself, so he actually attacks for 4 instead of 3. And he's not legendary, so you can play multiple. Like, if you have 2 of them, then now your Hired Claws bolt your opponent. And remember, Hired Claw doesn't have to attack, so if you, like, turn 3 Flamecaller, turn 4 Flamecaller plus Hired Claw, and then attack with Flamecaller, Flamecaller pings your opponent for 3 from Hired Claw, and then is attacking for 5 damage on his own. So those 2 cards have like kind of always been on my radar, but because of Screaming Nemesis and the meta, never made it into the deck. But they've been performing really, really well. I like them a lot. The other thing is we had this like change with the way damage works. I think with Foundations, where now there's no like ordering damage, and you don't have to deal lethal damage before you start dealing damage to the next creature, which was largely didn't really matter. But this is a big deal with replacement effects, because Valley Flamecaller is a replacement effect, and it says whenever you do the damage, deal that much damage plus 1 instead. And so let's say I'm attacking with a 2/2, and my opponent blocks with 2/2/2s. With the old rules, I would have to apply 2 damage to one of the 2/2s before I could apply any damage to the next one. So under the old rules, if I attack with a 2/2, then I have to deal 2 damage to one and 0 to the other. And then when Valley Flamecaller applies its replacement effect, the 2/2 would take 3 damage, and the other one wouldn't take any damage because Flamecaller looks for damage and then adds 1, but 0 isn't damage. Now, with the way the rules are, I can actually just apply assign 1 damage to each of those 2/2s, and then Flamecaller's replacement effect will be applied, and each of those 2/2s will take 2 damage and die, which is really cool. You basically, prior, there were specific rules where you had to apply enough pre-replacement effect damage to a creature such that it will die before you can start applying damage to the next creature. But now, once your opponent applies multiple blocks, you can basically apply damage however you want. So if they block with 3 creatures, you could deal 1 damage to each of those 3 creatures. You could deal 2 to one, 1 to another, 0 to another. You can apply it however you want. And you apply all of your damage before the replacement effect kicks in. And then when you go to damage, the replacement effect kicks in. I see Ron's brain working a little bit as he tries to think through this. Do you want to add or ask anything, Ron?
No, I'm still looking for what I'm going to play. I ran a couple RCQs with 2 different versions of Leyline and wasn't really having a good time. And I'm just sitting here thinking, well, maybe I'll give mice a shot. Although I think my next outing will probably be a mono red outing, just because I expect everybody who can to be playing Izzet Lessons. And but mice is always floating around in the back pocket.
Yeah, I think mono red is a good choice. But think about mice too. There's a lot of complexity and decisions and triggers with mice, so I wouldn't kind of dive in lightly. But I really like the deck, and it also just is playing some good cards, which I think you need a sprinkle of. Seam Rip is really good. It's a really efficient way to deal with like the 2/3s out of Reanimator. It's a really efficient way to like take away an artist talent from a Lessons player. I have 4 in my 75, and the card just continues to be insane. Shout out Autumn for telling me to put that in my deck before Liverpool. Autumn is a fantastic Magic player, and so naturally their suggestion made my deck way better. Seam Rip continues to be, to quote Autumn, it's a way to trade up on mana, which the deck is not necessarily good at. Burst Lightning is typically it has a hard time killing something better than 1 mana, but no matter what 2 mana thing your opponent puts in play, Seam Rip can answer it for 1 mana, which is a really big deal when you're trying to like cast Hard Claw on turn 1 and turn 2. So that's been great, and the Legend of Roku is insane, and I genuinely believe that a Mabel deck is the best way to play the Legend of Roku in Standard, because giving Roku haste is just insane. I'm like 6 for 6 when like my opponent has allowed the game to go long enough that Roku flips over. When I go to equip Mabel's sword to Roku and they read Mabel's sword and they see that Roku has haste now, they just concede. Like they don't even let me do the thing, which is disappointing because I want to do the thing. but it's always a very funny moment where I see my card light up and I know that they're going, oh, okay, because Roku is awesome. You get 3 cards, so you're gonna have a really big follow up turn, and then he gives you a mana, which like shockingly has been relevant because Mice also plays the utility lands like Rockface, Bivouac. I bring in Soulstone, and then if you have Mabel's Sword, so there's so many ways to use your mana. So you have such a big turn that your opponent is forced to spend mana and cards dealing with the big turn you have after you cast Roku. And then the idea is that like Roku doesn't have haste, so they have a moment to breathe to answer Roku himself. Well, when you give Roku haste with Mabel's Sword, they don't have that moment to breathe. So they kind of blow their load answering your big turn because like the way the card is designed, you aren't really going to have 2 big turns in a row. But when you have Mabel, you get to have 2 big turns in a row. And between the card draw of Roku and casting Heroes Hangout as a red sleight of hand and scrying with Valley Quest Scholar, you can pretty consistently find one of your 3 copies of Mabel in those grindy games. So I feel good on like every side of the spectrum. Against Lessons decks, it's a good package of efficient disruption from Seam Rip and Rest in Peace, plus the aggression of my creatures. Against the grindy decks, Roku is very, very powerful. And against the combo decks, which is like generally the weakest for aggro, but we get to play Rest in Peace and Soul Guide Lantern against the Spider-Man deck, which you know, depending on how the meta shakes out, maybe I want even more than 4 Graveyard Hate pieces, but for now, you know, just feels like the deck has good tools all around, and while it isn't doing something broken, it's doing something powerful. It's playing enough good cards, and it has a lot of like synergies and intricacies. Not that it's a reason to play the deck, but people misplay against Valley Flamecaller just over and over again. People don't understand how replacement effects work. And kind of, as I was saying before, red aggro is largely in a spot where like your deck's not going to do the work for you. You have to beat your opponent, and leveraging these like high level things like you know, an attack that might look bad is actually really good because of the way the replacement effect and Mabel's ability. There's a lot of like stacking keywords and triggers and replacement effects where you can be doing something that doesn't look that scary, and then your opponent blocks, and you're like, okay, so this is the way that works out, and then they concede. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about Boros Petting Zoo, which is what I renamed the deck, because it's mice, rabbits, and lizards. With dragons in the side, I think you could pet dragons, you know? How to Train Your Dragon got redone recently, epic movie. So Roku making dragons definitely fits the petting zoo theme. So Boros Petting Zoo, I think it's low-key a pretty good deck. It's not better than Lessons. I'm not a crazy person. But low-key, I think it's pretty good.
Do you want to give the listeners a temperature check on Leyline?
Yeah. I think Leyline is good. I am enjoying... I think all flavors of Leyline are good. I still like Izzet the best. I think that Red is a broken card. You want to strive to have some number of broken cards in your deck in Standard right now. And since Leyline is playing 4 copies of full bore no matter what, playing Riddler in the deck as well is like pretty obvious. The Boros version is also very good. I think it's easier because you just like, if Voice of Victory survives the turn cycle, your opponent is F6'd. Or like if you have enough mana to play Voice of Victory and then kill your opponent, again, like your opponent is F6. You can't answer Voice of Victory unless you counter it on the turn that Voice of Victory is played. So there's a lot of merit to the Voice of Victory route. Gruul, I think like Gruul and Mono Red fall into the category of like the leyline core is broken, and when you do the broken thing, you just like kill people. Gruul has Questing Druid, it has Snakeskin Veil. It can do all the things that the other decks do that Boros and Izzet do. But I think Boros and Izzet do them better. But it's not by such a wide margin that Gruul is unplayable or anything. Gruul, you also get to play Paw Patch Recruit, which has Trample, and I think playing creatures with Trample, or in the case of Izzet, Flying, is really important for Leyline. Mono Red, I don't think there's any reason not to splash a color. I think Nick said that on the last episode. Like, why are you not splashing a color? It's free. It makes your deck better. Alex keeps winning anyway, so go get him, buddy. But like, I think everyone else should splash a color. It suffers from the same, like, it's not a casino deck, but it's still higher variance than the other things you can be doing in standard. That's like where I would land, and why I think I would play Mice over Leyline in Atlanta, because like when Nick and I played Leyline, it was broken. It was the best thing. And the like most important thing is that it was still arguably the best aggro deck, even when you didn't have Leyline. So it was like a really powerful aggro deck and a really powerful combo deck. And without the like Heartfire Hero and Scamp that kill themselves, like Leyline is more fair than it was. The aggro half is weaker. Like, it's still a very good deck. You can definitely win RCQs with it. If you're confident and enjoy Leyline, you should play it. There's, pros and cons to all the versions. But it's not the best aggro deck. It's not the most broken thing. Like, it is a combo deck and an aggro deck. It does both things, but it's not the consistency is what's kind of not worth it for me at the moment. Like, there's just too much consistency in the format, and Ron's making a face. The deck is more consistent than Ron would tell you it is. Ron's in the casino deck camp. He'll be like, yeah, I mulled the 4 7 times. The deck doesn't do anything. Like, I think Nick and I could still like pretty easily just pick up the deck and win an RCQ if we really wanted to. But I don't want to play it in Atlanta and potentially, have a cold run in the middle of the day like I did in Atlanta last year, and just kind of be in a bad spot. Going 7-0 the next day and Nick doing what he did, like the deck was better then. I'm like way over talking, but good deck, broken format. Like,
all I'm gonna say is it's not the old Leyline. And
I agree with that.
Somebody who played the old Leyline, enjoyed the old Leyline, felt like I had way more ability to dig out of something, or I didn't have to have the perfect hand to get there. I played the Gruul version, I played the Boros version of the current versions, and they both just feel like I know you say I'm saying it's a lottery deck, but there's a certain aspect to that there that just wasn't there in old Leyline. And I know you talked about that, but it's
so I'm gonna say the same thing kind of I said earlier, in that like you used to be able to depend on your deck to beat your opponent. And now if you play Leyline, the only one who's gonna beat your opponent is you. Unless you like high roll. Leyline has the high roll half. But like, there are a lot more games that are dependent on you beating your opponent, not your deck. And that's like true for all the aggro decks right now. And I think it's exacerbated pretty aggressively on Leyline. The deck is not as good as it was, but it's not as bad as some people would say. There's a huge percentage of games where I'm like, there's no way I win this game. I'm so dead. Like, Jacob was talking about before, he like scooped him up on turn 3 and someone was like, no, you might still win. Like, there's a lot of games where I'm playing Leyline and I'm like, I should just scoop, but I'll play for another couple turn cycles, and then like 3 turns later, my opponent dies, and I'm like, guess I'm glad I didn't scoop. Like, I really like the Izzet version. Playing stock up, I think was like is a really cool way to play post board, and instead of depending on like paw patch recruit and trying to do like a pivot, it actually kind of pivots you more into a combo deck. Like stock up is a broken combo card, and so being able to dig 5 and like take the combo pieces you need is really powerful. Shout out Michael for top 8ing his RCQ with Izzet Leyline. He was like going on a little journey, and we met and talked about a lot of different things, and he felt kind of rejuvenated, and I gave him a similar talk as I'm like giving you guys and telling you, Ron, that like your cards aren't going to beat your opponent anymore. It has to be you. It has to be you. And he took that to heart, and he really focused on gameplay over card choices, and he just said, Stanley, I'm going to trust your 75. I'm really going to focus on playing better, and he started to do better online, and then he went and top 8 at his RCQ. It's there. The deck is still very good, but you have to work really hard for your wins. You have to work harder than you used to for your leyline wins, and just to kind of try and tie a bow on it. It's still very good, and if I knew for sure I was going to Atlanta, I would be doing some serious A/B testing between Izzet Leyline and Boros Mice. But like, if last minute I was like, Nick, I'm getting in your car, it turns out I can go to Atlanta, I would just pack Boros, because it's just like a simpler, well, I know I'm gonna, at least play Magic and, give myself a fighting chance to, beat my opponent. Whereas, Leyline does have that fail rate that you have to fight with that used to be worth it because other decks were weaker and Leyline was way stronger. And now the balance has just kind of shifted, and I don't know if the opportunity cost is worth it anymore. I want to hear what Nick has to say.
I really don't feel that I have too much to say. I mean, I agree with everything that was said, realistically. I think current Leyline is not what old Leyline was. I think old Leyline was, like, the best deck, but only me and you knew it was the best deck. Whereas now I can tell I need to work harder for my wins. So, like, why would I work harder when I could cast and Chester Recall? I'm going on a play the best deck journey now that I'm on the professional tour. So, like, I don't really have interest in playing something that isn't Izzet Lessons right now. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I think Ron's putting Leyline in the dirt too hard, and I think Stanley's putting him in his place.
Nice, love to hear it. Yeah, it's like a fine line to walk, because all our options, like if you're just a straight up aggro player, all our options right now have their various downsides or challenges. But the most important thing that I would say to any aggro player is to make that mental shift that, like, my cards are not going to beat my opponent. I'm going to beat my opponent. It's a very difficult but empowering thing to do. And it's hard because you can't just continue to lean back on, oh, my deck was bad. Like, you have to really shift it and be a killer and say, I'm going to be the one to beat my opponent. And, again, shout out Michael. I kind of gave him this talk because he kept, Stanley, I don't know about this card. I don't know about that. Maybe I should play that. I'm like, stop. And he stopped and he focused on, I'm going to be the one to beat my opponent. And he did. He was really excited to make top 8. And I would say that to anyone who is, like, committed to aggro and kind of on the same struggle as all of us right now, trying to find the best version of aggro, is just remember the most important piece of that equation is you. and your gameplay and your sequencing and everything that you do. Don't depend on your deck to beat your opponent. You need to do it. And with that, it's been over 90 minutes. Anyone got closing remarks?
Have fun casting Ancestor Recall, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for the year in review episode that I'm crowning that the name of it.
Nice. Love it.
The year in review.
Look forward to that.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, you guys can comment on stuff. That's allowed. Like, comment, share, do that kind of stuff. I think Nick's deck tech was one of the coolest bits we've done yet. So that was like, I think pretty cool and valuable. Hopefully you found it cool and valuable. If you want to hear us spend, sections of the podcast doing deep dives like that into decks, tell us you want to hear more of that. And have a great night or day or drive or whatever you're doing.
Or morning run.
Yeah, or morning run if you hate yourself.
Who would do that?
I used to make this joke. I only run for 2 reasons. To food or away from danger.
But
everybody's laughing. They're just on me.
Yeah, that's true.
It was funny. Trust me. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.